Timing. You know, timing is everything in this life.
Hello there.
How are you? What time is it? Oh, spot on. You know, my military family would say, I'm late, because if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late. But as life goes, you always have somebody in front of you when you're rushing who decides to go below the speed limit. I don't even care if it's a speed limit, but below the speed limit, it's like, oh my God. And here I am. Andy, are you frozen? He's frozen. Okay, let's see.
Let's see. See what's happening.
You're frozen. You look nice, but you're frozen. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming on the call this evening. I'm Maggee Miggins, and I am so excited. We haven't met in a long time on Zoom, and maybe that's a good thing because of COVID. That maybe is a good sign that we're beyond the bad part of COVID and into the good part. Where we're starting to get our lives back to normal. We have a little technical difficulty. Andy seems frozen. Maybe we should tell him to hang up and come back on.
Yeah, okay.
Let's do that. We're gonna have Andy hang up and come back on. And I'm really excited about tonight's webinar. Leslie's worked so hard with Andy on this for us. Leslie Crowe is our Director of Marketing at the Maggee Miggins Group. And so we're sitting here in our wonderful office right on Chatham Road next to the Short Hills Post Office. And I'm so excited because all of a sudden fall came upon us. And even though we're experiencing all these wonderful summer-like days, I guess we call that Indian summer, we always did. I'm feeling a little bit of the frostiness coming, you know, 40s and 50s. Gosh, we even turned the heat on the other day. I can't believe we did it. I didn't want to, but we did. So Andy, you're going to try and come back on. We're going to talk about what to prune and what not to prune.
He is logging off and logging back on.
He is.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we have to accept him as a Andrew K. Becker? Let's see. What a panelist, maybe. Andrew K. Becker.
It says he's on. Sorry, everyone.
It'll be a minute. Wait, 7. Go to attendees. Did he come in there? What if we hung up on him and then made him dial back in? What if we went over there and just hit more and then remove him and tell him to come back on?
Remove.
Andy, we're going to remove you and then come back on, okay? Love. There we go.
Okay, wait. You sure we're not removing him? Hold on a second. Okay. Okay.
Oh, no.
Sorry, guys. It said if we remove him, it can't come back on.
So
Do you want to go over some numbers while we wait for Andy?
sure, let's do that.
Okay.
We can do that. We are going to get back to, but we thought we'd give you numbers anyway. So let's just talk about.
We're going to share our screen really quick. Yep. We'll just talk about what's going on in the market.
So while Andy's figuring this all out and Leslie's going to work on that, we thought which we always do at every webinar, so you know, is we always like to update people about what's going on in the market. And as I'm sure everybody has read, it's been a really hot real estate market. So one of the things we do at the Maggee Miggins Group and Compass Real Estate is we gather the numbers up and we give them to you. I think he's back on. So one of the things we have is, for instance, this is just a market snapshot, and it'd be our pleasure to send it to you if you wish. And we cover 20 other towns or so. But for instance, we're sitting in Short Hills, so we pulled up Short Hills. In the month of September, 12 homes went under contract and 17 units sold. And this was average price for sold, 1% increase. When you see a decrease of numbers of units sold, it's just because we just don't have enough inventory. There's just not enough homes to close, to sell. I mean, and we, gosh, I think we're down to about 45 houses to sell in the whole town of Millburn Short Hills. That's not a lot of inventory. Historically, we have about 95, 100 homes. So you could see that overall, the average days on market is about the same year over year. The asking price is up by about 2 percentage points. The average sold price is up. But look at that, last September, we had 25 homes that closed in Short Hills. That was also the beginning of the pandemic as well. And there are no condos. So we have Short Hills numbers. We have Milburn's numbers. If you happen to live in Milburn, the average price is less. 10 properties under contract, 10 sold. And again, you see, but you also see, look at that. There was a 50% increase in sale price in Milburn. So Milburn got really hot, hot, hot. You could see where the average days on market was almost half. The asking price was selling 5% over asking. You could see the average sold price increasing, the number of contracts, average days on market was less. So when you see numbers like that, that means, oh, wow, the market's really on fire. So that was Milburn.
Hi, John.
Hi, guys.
Oh, you're back on, Andy. We're just
We
finishing.
had a little technical difficulty. My apologies.
And then we said, please stand by. We're just going to finish Maplewood's numbers.
Sure.
And then you could see again, the numbers are down in terms of what there is to sell. There's just not enough inventories, ladies and gentlemen. So something to keep an eye on. We also have South Orange. And then we also have Summits. So if there's a town that you didn't see that you wish to see, and or if you would like to have these sheets sent to you, we get these every month. It'd be our pleasure to be able to send them to you. And then now we are back with Mr. Andy. So let me go. Go to the yellow. And Andrew K. Becker, full disclosure, Andy happens to be the landscaper at my home. And I have to tell you, I get a lot of compliments on how lush and green and beautiful my lawn looks. All the neighbors love it. And he does a really great job. And so I'm really excited for you to share, Andy, and Andy, you grew up in Short Hills. You've lived in town, or your mom still?
Yes, we moved to Short Hills in 1965, February of 65. And I was exactly six months old when we moved on to Brookhaven Way.
And your mom's still there. God bless her. So, Andy, we're going to talk about so many people, I think myself included, and I'm so glad we have you, but we talk about, gosh, what do we cut back? What don't we cut back? What do we not want to ruin? What do we not want to burn? So that's why
Right.
we wanted to have this for everyone, so they have an idea, especially now with fall and everything changing. So why don't we go to the next slide? Lawn renovation. So let's talk about the lawn and the importance of maintaining it and why you think it's a work in progress.
Well, I think a lawn, is a work in progress because it starts in the spring and March with your cleanup. It's best to work with a certified lawn applicator that can give you the right guidance for fertilization, liming, crabgrass control, broadleaf weed control. And of course, if you get the little pests and fungus, you need to have a guy that knows how to treat that. Lawns do need every few years to be aerated and overseeded, where they loosen up the soil, they overseed. The example to the right, where you have some large bare patches, would almost require something of a soil and seed type application, where you're grading clean topsoil, putting some starter fertilizer down and the appropriate seed for the exposure that you have, and covering it with a shredded hay to create germination and hold in moisture.
Would you do that now, or is that the March time?
You're really going to do soil and seed and aeration and overseed. I'm a big fall seeding advocate. I like to seed in the fall because you don't have to get through the watering of the summer. You don't have to. I mean, if you have to seed in the spring, you do it. But if you can do it in the fall, that's the optimum time. It just seems to work better. And sometimes the certified applicators, some of their stuff can stunt some of your seed growth. So it's really best to work with that in the fall.
Okay, so this is really horrible and patchy and muddy looking, I guess. And then this one, what are we looking at here?
I think the one on the right really has some kind of either erosion problem. Something might have gone on there. I'm not exactly sure what, but on the left, that looks more of a drought stress to me from a long, hot summer. And that's where the aeration and overseeding would really be the best. Soil and seeding in some of the ruts would be good, but if you were to loosen up that soil and seed it, all the existing grass around it, the roots can then spread. With the addition of the new seed, that lawn would come back really nice anytime after Labor Day up until about right around now, right around October 20 is your cutoff date for seeding, maybe a little after. We have great conditions this year because it's still very warm, very unseasonably warm. So still good for seeding right now.
It is. Okay, terrific. Let's see what we have next. So that's everything you talked about. What about these grubs? I hear a lot about grubs. What do grubs do?
Right. So grubs are like a small, for lack of a better term, they almost look like an inchworm. They're
Okay.
white in color. They feed on the roots of your lawn. So when
Okay.
you have grubs, usually a good way is after a skunk or a raccoon comes in and kind of turns over the area of lawn, you'll see some disturbance. That's usually a good indication you have grubs. And if you do get grubs, you need to get involved with your applicator to do a GrubX application to control them. Very easily controllable if you discover you have grubs.
Okay, so they're small and white in nature. All right, terrific. So this is what pretty lawns look like.
Those are some recently new lawns I put in. On the left, I redid the entire front lawn of that house after several years of construction. That was a very large, some trees came out, some stumps were removed.
This one?
Some new lines went in, such as drainage and conduit lines, and a new gas line. So I ended up redoing the whole lawn. And I did that in mid-September last year. And you can see the results just 1 month later of how thick, lush, and green a new lawn can be.
Did you do that with seed or did you lay sod?
I did that with seed. Sod, if you're going to do sod, you really need to keep a lawn either a seeded lawn or sod where you have sodded, because it doesn't really blend in as nice as a seeded lawn. You'll always see that little distinction of the sod area. So
Okay.
stick with the sod in places and stick with the seed in the other places. That's the best way to do it.
Okay, a mix and match.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah, that's nice pictures of nice and thick. That's what my lawn looks like, believe it or not. My lawn did not look like that before you took over. You did a really nice job, but we have a nice, and of course, pets. It's unfortunate. I mean, we've lost our dogs, which is tragic, of course, but
Right.
the pets also make spots on the lawns. And I don't think there's anything you can do about that, is there?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of put off renovating your lawn until it was time to do that. And once the pets were gone, we fixed the lawn, and it turned out really good. You can't really do much when you have several dogs and they're very active on the lawn. You're only going to get limited results. So you have to be careful with that. It's nice to find a place if you can give them their own little section to preserve the rest of your lawn. That always is a good idea.
Sure, sure. Okay. Pruning. Now, this is a really important one, so go ahead. What to prune? So Andy, what are we pruning?
So, usually your landscaper, your homeowner, your weekend warrior, they're doing a lot of their pruning in late June, July, and August. It's great if you can wait till September to prune. Sometimes it just doesn't work. Things get very overgrown, and a lot of houses need to be pruned twice. And I'm a big advocate of not over shearing the boxwoods. It's a good time now to tighten up your boxwoods if you let them get a little long throughout the season. You can shape hollies and laurel and green giant arborvitae. You can in and out prune your azaleas and rhododendron. You don't want to cut them too much because you don't want to lose the blooms for next year. And you can always tighten up your forsythia and other shrubs around your property. You just have to be careful you don't over prune so you don't lose blooms on flowering shrubs, and you don't over prune to a point where the shrubs can get sunburn, in a sense, just like we get sunburn. If you over prune some of these shrubs like boxwoods and junipers and different things, the sun can burn them. So you just have to prune less than more is always my technique.
I have a question for you. When you say prune arborvitaes, are you topping them off or are you pruning them around like their bellies, as it were? I mean, you could.
Great question. Great question. So, the big popular tree now in Short Hills is a green giant arborvitae. They're going to give you great privacy. They grow 18 inches a year in height and 6 or 8 inches in width. And they're deer resistant. And that's a big plus for us because of our high deer population. And one of the advantages of them, they keep their skirt. That means they stay all the way to the ground. So I just like to tighten them up to keep them nice and thick so they don't get too leggy. And what I call tip pruning. It's always good to tip prune the leader of the green giant arborvitae so they get a little thicker on top and they don't get so spindly. And that gives you additional privacy, especially when you're planting on a property line or around the perimeter of your property.
So are you saying if the arborvitae is like this, you're cutting up top here?
I'm tip pruning at the top. I'm taking off the leader, maybe 18 inches, and that's going to make that arborvitae get a lot thicker on top.
Okay, I see.
Correct.
It fattens up as it would. And then when you have boxwoods, I'm just curious, I believe when you're trimming my boxwoods, you're doing them by hand, which is a rare thing, isn't it?
Hand pruning is it's a real art and skill. It's not used much anymore because of, obviously it takes longer. And you really need to have some knowledge to do it. A lot of people use shears. We try to hand prune, and then I like to use Italian scissors and lightly prune them. You can use a gas shear as long as you're doing it really, really light. I always emphasize to my crew, you really want to be light, not too heavy on the pruning. Some people who don't know have a tendency to over shear boxwoods. And if you do that, they're never going to look right. If you can just lightly prune them and keep them tight, you're gonna be good. You don't want to over prune. And things are supposed to grow and they're supposed to be natural. They're not supposed to be these individual meatballs that you see. You know, they're supposed to kind of grow.
The mold. Now let me ask you, in the past few years, we've had a blight on the boxwood. Where are we at with that?
Fantastic question, Maggie. The boxwood blight has something we had learned about 10 years ago. We had heard about it in Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New York State. We never had any. 2 and 3 years ago, there were cases of boxwood blight here. Overhead watering, keeping the boxwoods always wet, spreads it. And the humidity and the heat is bad for boxwood blight. This year, I saw absolutely no boxwood blight. I've only seen boxwood blight in the last 4 years at 3 of my properties. There are people that you can consult with, which is a certified tree expert who can identify the boxwood blight. And there are some things you can do to prevent the blight. It is a costly application. It has to happen every 3 to 4 weeks throughout the season. But there are companies that you can talk to see if you have the boxwood blight, but it seems to be under control now, which is nice.
That is nice. So, and the holly, so we have a big holly, as you know, on our tree. When you trim a holly now, tell me about that. Is it the same thing like you do with the arborvitaes? You take it from the top to kind of, what about the holly? Are you shaping?
We're not really shearing hollies. We're keeping them natural using pole clippers. And you can just keep them tight by clipping them with a pole clipper. You can do that in the summer and you can tighten them up in the fall. Yeah, you can definitely take the top off a little bit and keep it from getting too big. And you can do that, you know, holly is really good. You really want to wait to prune until all these plants, you cannot prune these plants until the new growth has hardened. And usually that takes place after June 15th. So anytime after that, you can prune, and pruning in the winter is also a viable option. You know, a lot of people who, if they're going to list their house, if they're going to renovate their landscape, they bought a house that is overgrown and needs to be pruned. It's perfectly fine to prune it in December and January if you're able to work outside. The growth is hard. You can always prune them then too. And in the spring, when they come out of dormancy, they'll give you the shape that you want after you've pruned them.
Awesome. We do have a question from someone in the chat box who asked, what about hydrangea? What do you do with the hydrangea now?
I knew that question was coming down the pike somewhere. I just wasn't sure when. So The hydrangeas, there's a lot to talk about hydrangeas, I think, first of all, I think a real gardener's secret is you don't do anything to a hydrangea after the 4th of July. You wait till you see what canes are alive. If you have some dead canes that pushed out no growth, you can in and out prune them a little bit.
Canes
I
are
think
the
with peonies, with hydrangea, you really want to do less than more. If you cut them too much, you're going to lose the blooms for a season or two. There are some hydrangeas, PG hydrangeas, standard hydrangeas, like tree hydrangeas. You can cut them very hard every fall. In December, I prune several clients. I tighten them all up. I bring them in really tight. They come back great, and you never lose the blooms. The hydrangeas you're looking at on the left, like twist and shout and knockout hydrangeas and these different endless summer hydrangeas, which are very popular now. I prune very little. Will I prune them a little bit if they get out of balance? Yes. Do I cut them in half and let them rejuvenate and grow up? I don't do that unless they really lose their shape. I like to let the hydrangeas do their thing, and I think pruning them less is always the best way to go.
So let me ask you this question, because I myself do have hydrangea on my lawn and on my gardens. I start out in the spring with something called an oak leaf hydrangea, and I think we see that a lot in town. And they eventually turn a beautiful burnished brown. And across the way from them, I have the tree hydrangea, which the deer ate the bottom but didn't get to the top. And they're these big, puffy balls. They're gorgeous, and they weigh a lot.
Beautiful.
Are we gonna, and probably a lot of the people on this call have those big hydrangeas. They're like this big. Are we gonna cut those? Because they're the tree ones?
Yeah, the big white ones with the big white flowers, those you can hard prune a little bit more. It's the more hybrid hydrangeas, like the endless summer, twist and shout, lace cap hydrangeas. Those are a little bit more temperamental, but the bigger ones, like the pom-pom white hydrangea, you can hard prune them. The standard hydrangea, you can hard prune them a little bit more, and they bounce back much better.
So these are the ones that depend upon the acid in the soil change colors, or those are the ones you're saying you should not hard prune? Is that correct?
I don't hard prune them. I let them do their thing, and I only tip prune them a little bit to bring them back into balance if one side is growing higher than another.
Sure.
I just think that, I'm always conscious I'm going to lose people's blooms, so I try not to prune them too much.
I understand that. Now, listen, sitting here are these stunning roses. I don't know if these are the roses from my house or some other place, but they're gorgeous. Let's talk about roses. We were laughing. There's that song, "'Tis the Last Rose of Summer Left Blooming on the Vine."
Right.
I still have rose blooms at the moment. And I have some other things that look like tomatoes that I guess are the ends of the roses, or I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's like these little balls that look like tomatoes. You'll see them when you come by.
I do know what that is. You see that on the carpet roses. That's like the dried up flower bud. They turn to little balls after the petals fall off.
Okay.
Those carpet roses that, for instance, are along your driveway. When we do your garden cutback, I might just take them down a tiny bit, but you really don't prune them until March with the spring cleanup. And the harder you hit them with a spring prune, really the better they'll come back. You hit them with some nice Espoma non-burning rose tone, which will feed them really good throughout the season, help them fight off the black spot that the roses get. You hard prune them in the spring, they just keep coming and coming and coming. You do not prune roses in the fall. You do not prune your climbing roses. You do not prune hybrid tea roses, knockout roses, because they will burn. Roses are a hard prune in the spring.
Okay, so that's good to know. And then these are some grasses down here. Now I see a lot of people in town do use grasses. So talk to me about what we don't prune these either?
Okay, so here, that's fantastic. You have some Hackanachoa grass right in the middle there. Those are switchgrass and Hamlin grasses in the back. Those are called annual grasses. So I cut them down in the spring. I feed them with a little 14-14-14 or 10-6-4. They come back terrific. If you cut them in the fall, if you see these guys that are taking gas shears and cutting them all the way down, there is a chance if we have a very severe cold winter that they will burn and not come back. If you wanted to tighten up some of these annual grasses, for instance, the one on the right, you could cut it below the plume of the grass, maybe go, midway down. And I would think that that's okay. Some people don't want that big sloppy look all winter long. In commercial sites and some natural plantings, we use them, because they're deer resistant, but they give you a lot of what we call winter interest. They give you a little something in the winter. And then in the spring, you cut them down and there's no stopping them. They come back and they're a great plant for your landscape.
Okay, so, and that's why I guess we see a lot of grasses. So you don't either, you could, if you wish to, cut the little bit of bloom off, but like you said, why not leave it for a little interest? It's hard in the winter to have anything.
Yeah, and I will say this, I know you've worked with the TBL before, and I've done some work with those wonderful people at the TBL who do such good things around Millburn Short Hills. We used a lot of these grasses on different traffic islands and in plantings downtown. And one good thing about them, they are pretty drought tolerant. Once they get their roots in the ground, they really take care of themselves really well. So they're a great all-purpose plant.
Andy, hold on one second. What is the name of this grass again? The middle one.
That's a Hackanachoa grass.
How do you spell that?
Hack. I would have to look that up. Hackanachoa.
Hackanachoa. And what is the one behind?
That looks to be a Hamlin grass.
Hamlin, okay. And this one
it could be a miscanthus grass.
Or miscanthus.
Some of the other ones are like scissor grass, ribbon grass. Another excellent grass, which we have at your house, is called a carex grass, Carex. That's also deer resistant, great color, comes in a white and green and a yellow and green, called Ice Dance, which is one of my favorites.
Okay.
Adds a whole nother layer of color and things to the landscape. Really nice.
Okay. All right. So, but we're not going to prune those. Go ahead, Les.
But we're not going to prune them until the spring.
Okay. So somebody wants some fall color. We want fall color. We like to try and drag it out as much as we possibly can. Planters, whatever, mums.
Yes.
Mums die kind of quickly, I think. So
they do. You said it really well. We want to drag it on as long as we can. Nobody wants summer to go away, and everybody loves color. Color sells. Color's visible. Yep. It's friendly, and it brightens everything up and makes everybody happy. So a lot of the things we do for fall. We use the different kale and cabbages. Here you have celosia on the left. You have some fall peppers in the middle. That's a really nice chrysanthemum on the right.
Is this
down on the bottom? I'm sorry?
Is this a new phenomenon, the peppers? I've seen these peppers. I mean, are they edible or are they just?
I mean, I don't think I'd put them in my antipasto, but they sure look very pretty.
Yes. Okay.
I'm not exactly sure. I'm sure they're not edible. They're really just
decorative
for color. Are they a new phenomenon? Peppers have been around for 10 or 15 years.
All right.
Pretty cool looking. Chrysanthemums are the big go-to.
Yeah.
They don't last very long. This is turning out to be a tough mum season because it's very hot. Mums like that 45 to 55 cool nights. They definitely need a lot of water. But if you get the timing right and you get a nice variety of mums, they make a great statement.
And is this our fall daisy?
I believe that is called a Montauk daisy.
Okay.
And that's a perennial, and that's something that you had on the inside of the sidewalk on the right side.
Yes.
And they bud up all summer long, and you're kind of like, what's going on with these? When are they going to show me something? And right around now, they just pop for great color. Really nice. They're a very popular flower at the beach. They love sandy, loamy soil. They're very popular at the beach.
When do
And
we?
they work great.
If I know I've had mine for a long time. In fact, we split them and put some in the backyard. When would you plant these if you were to see this Montauk daisy? Do you plant those in the spring or do you plant those in the fall? I know they bloom in the late fall, but when do they get planted?
You can do spring or fall. If you find the right plant material and you like it, you can, Montauk daisies are very happy in the spring and they go in very happily in the fall also.
Awesome. Okay. Because yes, that's the last thing that blooms in my garden are those and my anemones. And what did you
Well,
say?
that's why you want to, you know, when you plant a landscape, it's nice to kind of figure out a way to stagger some color through spring, through the summer, and then get some of that perennial color that gives you something nice in the fall, just like your anemones along the walk that look just great. I was there the other day and they look great.
I think that's my favorite flower. It's such a pretty little petite petal. It's this beautiful white petal with an orange face. Oh, it's a treasure.
I believe we have a picture of a pink one. If we go to the next slide, you might see some additional ones. I think we put here you go, right there in the middle.
Yes.
That's actually the pinkish version of the same flower you have at your house.
So this is a fall anemone and they come in pink and they come in white and the deer don't like them. So you have to kind of hide them so the deer don't get them. But they're beautiful. They're so pretty. I've seen those in gardens throughout towns, all the towns we work in, mixed, the pink and the white. Mine just all happen to be white, but
and here's a good example of the cabbages and the kale.
So what's this?
That's your fall cabbage.
Okay.
Great color. They come in white, a darker purple. That's a pinky color. They're a violet that I like.
Yep.
They work great. And you know, really, you're going to do them after the mums. Yep. And if you're going to do them, say, from Halloween moving forward, they're really great until after the first of the year. And you can just kind of leave them in all winter long. And in the spring, you pull them out. And then I transition into spring pansies. As long as they're sprayed for the deer, the pansies make great color in the early spring.
And these also, I've seen fall pansies as well, yes or no?
Yes, I have a wonderful lifelong client, and we do spring pansies in the garden. We leave those pansies in. We do a summer garden there, which I just removed 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I put in the fall pansies. And they will go all the way through the fall. They will sit there in the winter. I'll add a few in the spring. And by April 1st, just magnificent. You just have to really be on top of the deer spray. The deer scram is the granular product, and deer stopper is the liquid product. And if you really get into a good regiment like that, and you spray and deer scram every 10 days, you're going to have great success with those products.
And up here, that's the kale. Is that correct?
This is the kale in the upper right corner.
Okay, up in here. Andy, we have a question. Somebody likes to know, what's the best way to get rid of a Pachysandra patch? If you have a patch Pachysandra, how do you get rid of that?
Pachysandra really is, you just have to get a spade, choose your area to remove. Pachysandra will come out very easily. You're going to dig down 4 or 5 inches, spade it up, turn it over, and pull all those white roots out, clear it out, chop it up with a cultivator and rake it out, and that Pachysandra is removed. It's a very easy thing to remove.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. Let me go myself. Here we go. Hold on, I clicked something wrong. Now, this is something that I think, in fact, I'm going to have you do, is how to divide perennials, because often we have grasses that all of a sudden they grow up big and bold. We have other, the Montauk daisies, what else can you split? Hostas, you could split. So talk to us.
Hostas, I just divided peonies for a woman I did a job for last Saturday, and I also divided her Shasta daisies and her Becky daisies, which is the dwarf variety.
Okay.
Super easy to dig, divide with a spade, repurpose them throughout the landscape, and turn one big one into 5, 7 that create new splashes of color all through your planting area.
So let me ask you this question. Is the fall when you do this?
You can divide in the spring as long as you catch it right in March and early April. Once they start to really kind of get their foliage and get growing, you really can't do that. So hostas, when they start to show those small little worm-like things coming through the ground, you can identify it, you can dig it, you can divide it, and you can move it. And you can do it after, you can do it almost now. I mean, I like to see the leaves turn and get a little sad, you know, from a frost before you do it. But you can divide them in another 10 days or so, no problem. But
What
the
about-
spring, early spring is great too.
What about grasses? What if I said to you, hey, Andy, you know all those grasses going down my fence? I'd like you to divide those and put them all behind my hostas. Would you be doing that now?
Well, we did some in the spring, which turned out really well, remember?
Yes, and we have to do
We
it
divided
again.
those. Those are the biggest grasses in the United States, those ones that go at the bottom of your driveway.
Yes.
So we cut a couple, we cleaned them up, we divided them and moved them around after we took the vegetable garden out, and they were a success. Yes, you're going to do that in March, or you're going to do that at the very end of the year after they're really gone dormant. So really after Thanksgiving would be the time to do those big hardy grasses. And still you want to cut them, but leave some grass on top so they don't burn when you divide them.
I understand. And you're saying.
And if you leave that grass, after you divide them, that's a good way to pick them up and move them. Gives you a handle in a sense.
So, and you're saying this is the fertilizer to use, which is mycorrhizal Healthy Start Fertilizer, or
Mycorrhizal, there's a product out there called Plant Saver.
okay.
And it's a Healthy Start fertilizer. It promotes a healthy root system, and it creates root growth. And it's a good way to feed it and create root stipulation. The faster you get plants to root up before spring or fall, or during the fall, the better survivability rate they have. So this mycorrhizal is a great product to make it really create the root stipulation to get that thing rooted up in the ground. And if you want to feed it also with some Espoma plant tone, that's great because it's non-burning, it's organic, it's long lasting, it will last a few years in the ground and feed that plant. That's another great way to feed and create some root growth.
Andy, we had somebody asking, I thought about this too. What do you do when your neighbor's vines and bamboo? That's a real problem now, bamboo. What do you do when your neighbor's vines and bamboo start coming into your yard?
That's a great question. Invasive vines can be a big problem. Virginia creeper, wisteria, different types of sumacs, poison ivy is a big one. Several other vines that are not coming to my mind right now. As those vines start to really get going, they can choke trees, shrubs out, and they're unsightly, quite honestly. So if you have vines coming from another neighbor's property, you should obviously talk to your neighbor, but go ahead and take the proper action and prune those vines back from your property and keep them out of your large trees, keep them out of your plantings, and try to keep them pruned back so you can maintain your landscape. In terms of bamboo,
It's a real problem.
that's a whole nother creature because the bamboo, when I believe the Milburn doesn't even like you to plant bamboo. I think they have ordinances in regards to bamboo. You have to plant bamboo with something called a root collar. I've only planted bamboo several times. I went to great lengths with root collars to contain the bamboo in a curbing around retaining walls with pillars and everything. And the bamboo still got out. Bamboo can grow under driveways, under walls. It can go where it wants to because it runs on a horizontal runner. So if you get involved with someone with bamboo, with a neighbor, you really need to stay on top of that and deal with it quickly before it becomes a problem. And there are people that you can go online who will specifically deal with removing the bamboo and putting in these root collars to contain the bamboo. Bamboo is a real aggressive growing plant.
I know there are towns throughout the country that ban it.
Yes.
I know that there are people who have spoken to us about having Milburn do the same, and that there's it's very, very invasive. And like you said, grows in concrete and goes under your driveway. It's very difficult to get rid of. So I know that there are people that are looking to do that.
It has, there have been legal issues with bamboo, and there have been a lot of neighbor issues with bamboo. And you really need to take precautions if you're going to plant it, and you really need to be on top of it if your neighbor has bamboo, because it can look relatively normal 1 month, and several months later it can really cover a lot of ground. So you have to be very careful with it.
I gotcha. Let's see. Oh, okay. I think we have a question here. Hold on one second. Meg, did you have a question you wanted to ask? I think we had somebody who wanted to ask a question. Hold on one second. Oh yeah, there she goes. Okay.
Allowed to talk.
Allowed to
Yeah.
talk. Meg, you can talk and you can ask your question. Let's see. Ask to unmute. If you want to unmute. Let's see, hold on one second.
Should put it in the chat.
I don't think so. You might have put it in the chat. Hold on, my friend. No, she did not. Okay.
No, it was Meg Cushing.
Okay. Okay. Judith, you have a question?
Unmute her.
Unmute her. Let's just see if somebody has a
No,
chat.
Meg, see Meg is muted.
Yep, hold on. Okay. What do you do about azaleas? Do you prune them?
Okay, azaleas. So, you know, the old rule was don't prune an azalea after the 4th of July because you'll lose all the blooms. So if you didn't get your azalea, I would say only hand prune azaleas, no machines, no shearing, just good old hand pruning. It's
Okay.
just the easiest way to do it. And if you haven't pruned your azaleas at this time of the year, go deep in the azalea, in and out prune. So you're not losing all the azaleas. Don't take a shear and just shape it all up because you're going to lose most of your blooms. Just naturally, lightly prune it so it looks natural. That's what an azalea is supposed to look like. It's not supposed to look rounded or overly shaped. It's supposed to be natural. So just lightly prune it with a hand pruner and you'll be very happy in the spring.
Awesome. Judith, if you have a question, I think we've unmuted you if you wanted to ask. If we're having a hard time with that, please don't hesitate to put your question in the chat box.
Okay,
Or the question.
what about pruning is skip laurel?
Skip laurels.
Good question. Good question. So skip laurels are a great plant. They're relatively hardy to the zone. They take care of themselves after the first year they're in. They require a lot of water. I think pruning skip laurels is another thing that you do by hand. You can tip them on the top, keep them a little bit, tightened up so they don't catch too much snow and tip over. They're very fast growing, and just a nice hand prune to keep them as tight and the way you want them to look. And one thing with skip laurels, I always recommend that people spray them in the winter with a product called wilt proof. which is an anti-desiccant that prevents them from burning. If they're out by the road, if you live on a hill, they catch a lot of wind. If you can spray them with wilt-proof anti-desiccant, it will really help them retain moisture and get through a tough winter. And light pruning them with a hand pruner is the best way to do it. You can top them to keep them at the height you want, and just keep them tight so they don't get too wide and unruly, because they do grow very fast.
It's
So
W
if they-
I, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if they have gotten out of hand, what about hard pruning?
If they've gotten out of hand, which can happen, yeah, I would hard prune them in March before they come out of dormancy. You could take them down on the top, you could tighten them up. If you're going to hit them a little hard, that would be good. And that way, as you hard prune them in the spring when they come out of dormancy, they'll take their shape. That's the best way to do it.
Andy, what do you mean by tighten them up? You keep using that expression, but for the layperson, what do you mean by tighten them up?
Well, they can get big, they can get wide, they can get really one-sided. So by tightening them up, I mean like up and down the face of the plant. So going in and getting those long stalks that are leaning forward, that are out of balance, tighten them up so it looks more uniformly pruned as a hedge or as an individual shrub, if that's what it is. Just keep it tight so it doesn't become unruly, is what I'm trying to say. Does that clarify?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Andy, somebody asked, and this is a great question. If you have your roses in big pots, do you leave them outside for the winter? Do you take them in? What do you do with your roses if they're in pots, if they're not in the ground?
Interesting. Well, I don't know about roses in pots. I think roses should be in the ground. I think if they're in pots over the winter, they could freeze too much. They need some insulation in the ground.
I see.
I would probably dig at this point, if you want to keep them in the pot, I'd probably dig the pot in 3/4 of the way into the earth. And then I would mulch all up around that rose with some nice cedar mulch or hammermill mulch. So it's covered at the base and it's insulated for the winter if you're going to leave it in the pot. I don't think roses winter over well in pots. This would be a good time to pop that rose out of the pot and plant it into your landscape somewhere so it can have a permanent home.
Awesome. That's interesting. Now we talk about professionals that you recommend. Everybody has their little black book of the best people they like to work with, whether it's our landscaper or, if we're working on kitchens, etc. So this is your little black book. Thank you for sharing, of your recommended professionals for certified tree expert, a lawn application, and irrigation professional. Because I guess if we start at the bottom, if you're doing all this wonderful landscaping, and we ran into this myself this year, you had planted along the side of my house
Yes.
daisies and comb flowers, and they were all dying. And I'm like, why are these dying? I have a sprinkler system. Long and behold, we didn't put the sprinkler system on those flowers. The minute they did, they were thriving. They were beautiful. It was wonderful to look outside to see them.
Yes.
But Ed from Phoenix Irrigation he came right out and fixed it for me, which was fabulous. And he's the one who did my irrigation system, wasn't he?
Yes. Ed Collindray, family name throughout Millburn Short Hills for 75 years. His father was a fantastic mason. Ed has been in service his entire life with irrigation and masonry. When he opened Phoenix Irrigation, that was his passion. He is a unbelievable professional. I trust him around all my clients' homes, and his knowledge of irrigation is next to none. He's the best, and he's someone that's highly responsive, very responsible, and really knows his irrigation systems and designing systems. And if you're going to do, all this nice planting and all these things, an irrigation system for your lawn, for your plantings is vital. If you're going to maintain your investment, and especially if if you have a summer home and you're not around a lot in the summer, summers around here can be a little unforgiving at times. We've had some really bad drought situations, and some things are drought tolerant, but to a point. So having a good irrigation person on your property is a great thing.
And then Mackinson, his name feels like it's been around forever. He does the lawn application to keep the grubs away and to keep the lawn looking green and pretty.
Yeah, Paul Mackinson is great local color. He's been doing this since 1999 for himself and worked for other companies prior. He went out on his own. He maintains most of the properties that I work on, all my large estates, and all different varieties of homes I do. And I've recommended him to lots of people where I even don't work. And everyone likes Paul. He does a great job. He's got a great staff. And he's a very customer service related individual who will always return your call. And if I see a problem on one of my properties and I pick up that phone, I know that by the end of the week, Paul will have his own two eyes on the situation, and he will keep your lawn looking the best. And my comment always is, if I have a good lawn, I can it makes my work look that much better. If I have good things to work with, I can always make the project look that much better. So working with Mackinson and our cohesiveness has been terrific for me for many, many years now.
And Scott Lamb is the one who does, he's with Save a Tree. So he's the guy that's spraying the trees to keep them healthy. Is that correct?
So, Short Hills is Tree City. We have big estate trees. We have historical trees, ornamental trees. We have all kinds of trees here, and they add a lot of value, a lot of stateliness to the neighborhood and to the properties. And having a guy like Scott Lamb from Save a Tree is a great thing. He keeps his eyes on the trees. He knows what they need in terms of pruning, in terms of care, in terms of if there's a problem. He also will monitor the boxwoods for the boxwood blight like we talked about. And another big thing with Scott is he identifies with the boxwoods the leaf miner problem, which is all throughout Short Hills, which is really the bigger problem with the boxwoods than the blight right now is the leaf miner. And having Scott's eyes on your property will ensure you that your trees are being cared for. He knows what to do. He knows what to look for. He works for a terrific company with a lot of resources. And Scott's always available for a consultation. If you book it through his office, he's always happy to come and walk your property. And he's very informative and knows what he's doing the best. He's a great, great tree man.
And we're seeing those same blights, et cetera, not only here in Short Hills, but we see it in Summit, we see it in South Orange, Maplewood, Livingston. It's all the towns all surrounding us. It's not just in one town. Is that correct?
That's correct. And with the three people that I've mentioned, between the certified tree expert,
Sure.
which is a state licensed expert, Paul, who's a certified lawn applicator through the state, and Ed from Phoenix Irrigation, who is licensed and tested by the state. These are the kind of people who know the real deal, and they're licensed to give you the proper education as they have in their fields. So these are why I recommend these people. They know what they're doing, they're licensed, and they're professionals.
Okay. We're laughing. That you know who that happy client is.
He looks very familiar to me. I believe that's the man that wasn't watering your daisies on the side of your house when we had that irrigation problem. He's your maintenance guy, isn't he?
He is, but I think I should show him this picture because COVID's added a little, I don't know what. That shirt would be a little tight on him right now.
Yeah, see, he's a very, very happy client. He watches every move I make, I have to say.
Oh, my Lanta, he is. He knows all his flowers. He loves them.
He does. He does.
He does. And we are happy clients. And I say that with a full heart because we think you do a fabulous job. Where to find supplies? We've got the Orange Garden Center in Orange. the Farm at Green Village of Chatham, where I always have the best of luck. In fact, that's where I bought my mums this year. And whatever that ivy is that's hanging off of them, I bought those and we planted them. And those window boxes have the little, I don't have to worry about watering them. The irrigation guy put in little feeders of water for my window
Yeah.
boxes, which is fabulous. So I don't even know.
Who would have thought? Yeah,
I
that's great. And there's a perfect example of if you go away or your schedule is so busy that you forget to water them, with Ed, it's going to happen automatically. The people at Orange Garden, Artie Miller down there, best plant material in this area, very knowledgeable, very helpful. The Farm at Green Village, you can talk to Brian or David up there. Fantastic with trees and plants and perennials. If you will go up to the Farm at Green Village and you need help with your flowers, please look for Maria. She helps me do all my important annual and full annual planters and my urns that I do. She's terrific and very knowledgeable. The people at Williams, great staff, great people. And Joe up at J&M Home and Garden, go out of his way to help you any day with great staff and great plant material, great people to deal with.
So Andy Becker, I've put up on the screen if somebody wanted to contact you, if they had questions. Your phone number is 376-5186 in area code 973. If there's something that we didn't cover that you have a question, please don't hesitate to call Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah, if something comes up that you just, oh, I should have asked him, blah, 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 blah. And Andy, I want to thank you for being on this call. You've been so helpful. It is fall. We'll have you back in the spring.
Yes.
We love when you come on. We love when you give the pearly words of wisdom, because I think it's important. Everybody loves their gardens. It makes them feel nice, feel happy. And I thank you so much. If anyone does have any other questions, they'll call you. If anyone has any real estate questions, you get to call me. I'm Maggee Miggins, or anyone on my team. We'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. We want to thank you all for spending your time, your very valuable time with us this evening. It was our pleasure to serve you. And everybody says thank you so much for the webinar. Thank you, Andy. Thanks for
Just a
coming.
quick thing. I want to thank Leslie Crow for all her hard work. She's so nice to work with, and she's so much fun, and she's very passionate about putting this together. And Caroline Coffee Bird, who's in your office, also helps, and Sue, who we like so much. And I thank everyone in your office for being so nice to me, and I love doing these. And if anyone wants to send me a picture or a question, andrewkbecker@yahoo.com. Takes me a couple days to get back on an email once in a while because I'm so busy, but I will get back to you. And anything I can do to ever help any Maggee and her clients and her friends, I'm here for you always, okay?
Thank you so much, Andy. And thank you everyone for coming on. We hope you enjoy the rest of your Thursday and make it a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a nice night.
Thank you so much.